special presentation on this Memorial Day. We'll be playing yesterday's Democrat and Chronicle. Niagara Frontier Radio Rating Services serves a whole bunch of content from the Rochester area. This includes the Democrat and Chronicle, which you're about to hear. But if you check out our podcast feed for the Rochester and Genesee Valley area, you'll hear more Rochester area content. Stay with us now.
Hello, this is Tommy DeLeo, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Friday, May 22nd issue of the Democrat and Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. January 6th, officers sue to block Donald Trump's $1.8 billion slush fund. Joey Garrison, USA Today. Washington. Two police officers who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021, sued President Donald Trump and his administration in a bid to block the Justice Department's new $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. The lawsuit, filed May 20 by Officers Harry Dunn and Daniel Hodges, takes aim at an arrangement it calls taxpayer-funded slush fund to enhance the insurrectionists and a paramilitary groups that commit violence in support of Trump. The plaintiffs argue that the fund's creation endangers their lives because it encourages those who act with violence in the president's name to continue to do so. And they also contend it will finance the violent operations of rioters, paramilitaries, and their supporters who threatened plaintiffs' lives that day and continue to do so. To prevent the public financing of paramilitary organizations in the United States and to protect plaintiffs from further violence, the fund must be dissolved, according to the suit filed in federal court in Washington. Trump, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett are listed as defendants. Dunn and Hodges have both spoken out publicly about their experiences defending the Capitol as a mob of Trump supporters violently stormed the Capitol to try and stop the certification of Joe Biden's presidential election win. They say they remain targets of harassment and threats. Blanche announced the Anti-Weaponization Fund on May 18th as part of a settlement agreement in a lawsuit that Trump and his family had brought against the IRS, seeking $10 billion in damages over the president's leaked tax returns. The Trump family agreed to voluntarily drop the lawsuit, meaning a federal judge won't rule on the merits of the suit, in exchange for the creation of the fund. The Anti-Weaponization Fund makes $1.8 billion available to compensate Trump allies who say they were unfairly targeted by prosecutors in the past Democratic administrations, paving the way for supporters who attacked the Capitol to potentially receive taxpayer money. Trump used his presidential powers on the first day of his second term to pardon or commute the sentences of nearly 1,600 January 6 defendants, including hundreds of individuals convicted of assaulting police officers. The suit argues that the Justice Department lacks the authority to create the fund because only Congress, not the executive branch, has the power under the Constitution to create new agencies and determine their structure and funding. It also says federal law does not grant the Justice Department the power to create new commissions, appoint its members, or recognize new substantive rights or claims. The DOJ has set a five-member commission with all members appointed by Blanche, who will control how the funds are dispersed. The department did not immediately respond to the lawsuit. Blanche, the president's one-time personal attorney, has not ruled out money from the fund going to defendants who were convicted of assaulting police officers on January 6th. Anybody in this country is eligible to apply, even if they are a victim of weaponization, Blanche told the Senate Appropriations Committee on May 19th, stressing that applicants won't be limited to Republicans. Trump, who, when asked about money potentially going to January 6 defendants, said the fund would be used to reimburse people who were treated horribly. They have been weaponized, Trump said, and have been, in some cases, imprisoned wrongly. They paid legal fees that they didn't have. They've gone bankrupt. Their lives have been destroyed. NY budget advances with late bill debut. Emily Barnes, New York State Team, USA Today Network. A small glimmer of hope for an actual New York State budget deal is sparked in Albany on Wednesday, May 20th. As the first of the remaining 9 budget bills was introduced 50 days past the budget deadline. The Education, Labor, and Family Assistance, or ELFA, bill, which includes school aid rented school aid related policies. Policy changes in the state of budget was passed one day after taxpayers went to the polls to vote on their local school district budgets for the upcoming school year. Our school districts needed a budget before Wednesday, when all of their budgets went to vote, Senator Tom O'Mara, a Southern Tier Republican, said on the Senate floor on Wednesday. A 14th extender was also passed and runs through Tuesday, May 26th, to continue to keep the government open while lawmakers work through the remaining budget bills. Here's what to know. School aid electric school bus mandate. Both local school districts and state and city colleges and universities will see some changes in this year's budget. School districts are set to receive a 2% increase in the foundation aid, funding and districts with students experiencing homelessness or in foster care will now receive a greater weight of this funding. And Governor Kathy Hochul's universal pre-K push has officially made it into the budget, with a statewide mandate of 2028 to 2029. On the climate front, the state's electric school bus mandate, which has received heavy pushback from state Republicans in a few recent months, will be delayed in 5 years, pushing the new purchase goal out to 2032 and 100% use goal to 2040. And districts can now install renewable energy projects such as solar and geothermal using state building aid. At the higher education level, the state's Opportunity Promise Scholarship, which currently offers free community college for New Yorkers working toward associate degrees at high-demand fields, now includes all state-run colleges and universities. Additionally, both SUNY and CUNY schools can continue to raise the tuition costs for out-of-state students through the 2020 2029 academic year. Responding to the New York State budget movement, O'Mara expressed his frustration with Hochul's message of necessity, or a call for the immediate vote on this bill, calling it premature. "We should have a complete budget before us," O'Mara said. "There's no reason that we couldn't, and that we shouldn't be waiting the constitutionally required 3 days. This continues to be a bad government." What's next? There are 8 budget bills left to be considered and voted on, which is expected to happen in the coming weeks. The legislature has 9 days left in the session to finish the passage of the state's budget, as well as pass any other non-budget bills they've been considering. Greater Rochester school elections. Here's what voters decided on candidates' school budgets. Talia Kane, Steve Howe, Mike Murphy, Madison Scott, and Kia Guerrero waiver. The Rochester Democratic Chronicle, USA Today Network. In school elections in the greater Rochester on May 19th, local residents decided on school district budgets and chose Board of Education candidates. Western New York voters went to the polls on Tuesday, and nearly every local school district, including Monroe and Ontario and Wayne and Livingston counties. Monroe County, Brighton. Voters in the Brighton Central School District approved a $114,689,880 budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year, increasing the tax levy by $2,436,160, or 3.98% from the 2025 to 2026 adopted budget. The budget passed a vote of 1,669 to 730. A second proposition, approved by a 1,569 to 821 vote margin, authorized the expenditure of $13,600,000 on a capital project. Voters were also selected 3 school board candidates. The candidates were Carolyn Bertino, Robert Cole, Susan Gasparino, Richard Crawd, Jeffrey Sachs, I think, and Sarah Schlagman, I think. Brockport. Few voters in the Brockport Central School District approved Tuesday a school budget of $108,501,813. The budget passed with 697 votes, 467 residents voted against the budget. The one running for 5-year Brockport Board of Education seat wave, Terry Ann Carborn, were weighing this number. Matt Hennard and John Lentz were weighing this number. We are awaiting the numbers. Churchville, Chile. Voters in the Churchville, Chile School District Central School District approved on Tuesday a school budget of $113,367,702 budget and two additional propositions. The budget passed with 453 votes. 285 residents voted against the budget. The spending plan and represented a 4.12 increase, or about $4.49 billion more of the current year's $108.9 million spending plan. The purchase of 8 diesel school buses was approved by 553 to 275 vote margin, and the establishment of a capital reserve fund was approved by a 528 to 299 vote margin. Running for Board of Education seats were Amy Wilson, Michelle Alloy, and Kevin Johnson. Irondequoit. Voters in East Irondequoit Central School District approved on Tuesday a school budget of $101,174,113. And two additional propositions. The budget was passed with 788 votes. 217 members voted against the budget. Creation of the equipment reserve fund passed by 809 to 195 vote margin. The reduction of the Board of Educators seats from 9 to 7 passed by 738 to 257 vote margin. Before running for the Board of Educators were Katrina Davenport, Elena Matthews, Dan McKerney, Jill Ritchie, and Carol Watt. East Rochester Union Free School District residents approved on Tuesday a $33,913,788 budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year. A 4% increase spending increase from the current year's budget. The budget will increase the tax levy by 2.11%, the 15th consecutive year or at or below the maximum tax levy limit for the school district. The budget was passed with 292 votes. 38 residents voted against. Voters also approved the transfer of funds to liability reserve by a 297 to 37 margin. Voters elected Christina Lansky Aiton, Michael Sisson to 3-year terms on the Board of Education. Third candidate, Brian Gravel, earned 121 votes, whereas Christina earned 275 and Michael Sisson earned 210. Fairport. Voters in the Fairport Central School District approved on Tuesday a school budget of $172.3 million, which includes a 3.3% tax levy increase and 2 additional propositions. The budget passed with 1,931 voters. with 1,094 residents voting against the budget. Authorization to appropriate and expend from capital bus purchase reserves passed by a 2,111 to 903 vote margin, and authorization to create and fund the 2026 Capital Building Reserve Fund was passed by a 2,059 to 962 vote margin. Elizabeth King was voted as public library trustee with 2,580 votes. The running for 3 school board seats were Erica Belois Pacer, Lisa Christensen, and Peter Forsgren. The residents in the Gateshead Central School District approved a more than $146 million proposed budget, 585 to 247 for the 2026 to 2027 year. The proposed budget totals $146,485,512, which is 4.80% higher, or $6,709,260 more than the current year's one. Here's $1,139,776,252 spending plan. Results for the school board election with the 4 seats available were Rochelle Jennings, 584 votes. Catherine Davis is 579 votes. Adam Ray Hard 523 votes. Angela Stout, 487 votes. And Christina Carney, 468 votes. Greece School District voters Tuesday approved a $35.4 million budget proposal. Also, 1,540 to 792. The budget represents the maximum allowable increase under the tax cap, up with the tax levy rising 2.27%. These 3 candidates were elected to the board out of the education were Todd Butler, Nicole Sawicki, and Ginny LaPlaca, I think. Hilton. Voters in the Hilton Central School District approved a $109 million budget, 851 to 492, and a bus purchase. This is proposition 933 to 417. At the ballot box on Thursday, electric bus proposition was defeated 491 to 860. The tax levy is proposed to increase by the maximum allowable 2.65%, while the overall budget will increase 3.58%. The 3 candidates ran for 2 Board of Education positions: Christine Price, Samantha Fowler, Linda Donovan. Hanoi Falls, Lima, Voters in Hanoi Falls Lima Central School District approved on Tuesdays a proposed $67.7 million budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year by a vote of 774 to 361. The proposal represents a 4.65 spending increase over the current year's budget and remains within New York's property tax cap. District officials said the estimated tax levy increase is 3.22%. The Board of Education candidates selected to the 3 open seats were Julie Madison and Carolyn Ross and Lindley Guckian. Penfield. Residents in the Penfield Central School District approved on Tuesday a roughly $136 million proposed budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year. The budget reflects a 4.3% tax levy increase, which remains within the state properties tax cap. With the budget passed by a margin of 2,466 votes to 1,222 votes. Voters also approved the purchase of 14 buses from the district capital reserves. Voters lifted 2 new candidates to the Board of Education to serve 3-year terms: Stacy Leonardo and Susan Kavanagh. Bested incumbent Krista Khan for two available seats. Dr. Alia L. Amin Turner, the incumbent, announced May 14th on social media that she was dropping out of the race due to a hostile discourse in the district and online. She still appeared on the ballot and earned 820 votes. Pittsford. Residents in the Pittsford Central School District approved on Tuesday a more than $176 million budget for the 2026 to 2027 new year. The budget reflects a 2.69% tax levy increase, which remains within the state properties tax cap. The budget passed by a margin of 2,251 to 617 votes. Voters also approved 4 propositions: the purchase of school buses, 2,286 to 577, purchase of electric school buses, 1,792 to 1,074. Purchase of technology equipment and school laptops, 2,375 to 489. Expanding on an existing project to update signage. 2,236 to 622 voters elected incumbent Robin Scott and John Pizzutelli to serve 3-year terms on the Board of Education. A third candidate, Anwar Upal, finished with 1,296 votes. Rush Henrietta. Oh, God. Residents in the Rush Henrietta School District approved Tuesday a $187 million proposed budget for the 2026 school year. The budget reflects a 2.17 tax levy increase, which remains the state's property tax cap. The budget remains passed by a margin of 1,372 to 1,178 voters. Voters also approved two school bus purchases, 1,748 to 796. Two incumbents were re-elected to their seats on the Board of Education, Laura Barrett and Sheila Arthman, will serve another 3-year term. A third candidate, Dre Collins, finished with 1,223 votes. Spencerport City Central School District voters narrowly voted down a proposed $107 million budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year Tuesday that includes a 4.7 tax levy increase. The budget failed with 798 votes against. 745 residents voted in favor of the budget. The outcome means we must now determine next steps, which could involve adapting a contingency budget or holding a revote in June, district officials said in a statement. We will inform our community once a decision has been made. Voters approved a proposition to use reserves to purchase student laptops by a margin of 920 to 621. Voters also elected 3 Board of Education members to 3-year terms, including Sean McCobb, Mark McLean, and David Gibaro. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat and Chronicle and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Voters in the Webster Central School District approved on Tuesday a $227 million annual budget, 2,506 to 1,196. That would raise taxes on Penfield and Webster residents. The proposed 2026 to 2027 budget represents a 31%. No, not 31. 33.1% increase over the current year. About $6.98 million. The rising cost of employee and retiree benefits is driving up about half the increase, jumping nearly $400 million over the current fiscal year. The 2 Board of Education candidates running for the 2 best positions were Janice Richardson and John Barker. West Irondequoit. Voters in the West Irondequoit Central School District approved on Tuesday and a school budget of $105,572,417 and 2 additional propositions. The budget was passed with 1,163 votes. 345 voted against it. A maintenance capital project for roof work was passed by a 1,224 to 298 vote margin. A proposition that allowed the district to increase an additional $10 in state aid for a long-term energy performance contract that was also approved by a 1,918 to 200 vote margin. Running for 2 Board of Election seats education seats were Gary Adams and John Vey. Wheatland Chile. You gotta be kidding me. Voters in the Wheatland Chile Central School District approved a Tuesday a school budget of $25,617,986 budget, and two additional propositions as well. The budget has passed with one. The budget passed with 160 votes. 72 voted against the budget. Voters also approved transportation purchases by 182 to 51 vote margin, and the use of reserve school fund to purchase school equipment was also approved by a 182 to 51 vote margin. Oh, look at that. The budget would include a proposed $11,198,789 tax levy, a 3.5% increase. With the projected tax rate would be $18.35 per $1,000 of asserted valuation, which is about 2.54% rate increase. Running for Board of Education were Shauna Fraser, Courtney Panic, and James Booshaven. Ontario, Wayne, and Livingston counties. And by 266 to 141 margin, voters in the Avon Central School District passed a $29.8 million budget for 2026 to 2027. Rodney George and Stephen Kamau were re-elected to 3-year terms on the Board of Education. A $4.6 million capital project was also approved by a 253 to 156 margin. A bus purchase proposition was also approved. Bloomfield. Voters in the Bloomfield Central School District approved a $25.1 million budget for 2026 to 2027. They carried a tax levy increase. A bus proposition was also approved by voters. Brandon Steele was elected to the Board of Education for a 5-year term. Canandaigua, by 963 to 408 margin, voters in the Canandaigua City School District passed a $97.8 million spending plan for 2026 to 2027, with 2.73 tax levy increase. Voters elected Amber Valvano with 1,119 votes, and Amy Hall with 1,887 votes to serve 5-year terms on the Board of Education. Additionally, voters by a 963 to 408 vote margin approved the Wood Library budget proposition. Voters also authorized the acquisition of 6 74-passenger diesel school buses and 4 45-passenger buses by 1,000 to 367. What is happening? Geneso. Okay. Geneso. Central School District voters approved on Tuesday a proposed $28.6 million in budget increase. $million budget for the 2026 to 27 school year. which includes a 2.83% tax levy increase and remains within the state's property tax cap. Geneseo Central School District voters approved Tuesday a proposed $28.6 million budget for the 2026 to 27 school year, which includes a 2.83 tax levy, 83% tax levy increase, and remains within the state's property tax cap. The budget passed with 389 votes. 109 residents voted against. Voters also elected 3 Board of Education members to last 3-year terms, including Bobby Steinhardt, Matthew Malaber, I think, and Roberta Irwin. Geneva. Voters in the Geneva City School District approved a $55.4 million budget by a 477 to 269 margin. Steve Budgar was elected to the board election with 247 votes for a 5-year term. Matthew Herbert and Melissa Green received 211 and 228 votes, respectively. A school bus purchase proposition was also approved, as was a capital reserve fund. The Geneva Public Library budget was approved, and Donald Cass and Judith McKinney, who ran uncontested, were elected to 5-year terms as library trustees. Hanoi. By a 351 to 147 margin, Hanoi Central School District voters on Tuesday approved a $21.9 million budget for the 2026 to 27 school year, with a 2.03% tax levy increase. Christopher Moore with 339 votes and Jermaine Morgan with 333 votes were elected to the Board of Education to fill the two board vacancies beginning July 1st. An energy performance contract was approved 408 votes to 85 votes. And the library budget was passed by a 315 to 183 vote margin. Livonia Central School District voters approved Tuesday a $44,177,030 increase. I mean, school budget that will include about $21.5 million in property taxes and $20.4 million in state aid. The budget passed with 460 votes. 298 residents voted against. Voters also elected the 3 Board of Education members to 3-year terms, including Ed Massena, Karen Bennett, Kim Holly Hettick, Leon Central School District. Leon's Central School District voters Tuesday considered a proposed $3,895,618 increase in dollars 2026 to 2027 school year budget, which is $1.96 million, or 5.9% increase from the 2025 to 2026 budget. Running for school Board of Education were Crystal Wadhams, Zachary Ankist, Manchester Shortsville. By a 156 to 123 margin, Manchester Shortsville Central School District voters on Tuesday approved a $24.9 million budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year that includes a 2.76 tax levy increase. Incumbent James Simmons received 200 votes, and Ashley Rivera received 196 votes. They were elected to the Board of Education to fill 2 board vacancies beginning July 1st. Their seats carry 5-year terms. Voters by a 207 to 69 vote margin also approved a school bus purchase. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Marcus Whitman. Voters in the Marcus Whitman Central School District approved a $44 million budget for 2026 to 2027 by a 500 to 176 vote. The bus purchase proposition and finding propositions to the quorum, Middlesex and Maple D. Bloodgut libraries were also approved. Scott Lambert with 411 votes, Lisa Grefroth with 410 votes, and Phyllis Frontel with 364 votes were elected to the Board of Education for 3-year terms. Christopher Bond and Carrie Link received 250 and 244 votes respectively. Naples by 243 to 190 291 margin. And Naples Central School District voters on Tuesday approved a $24.8 million budget for the 2026 to 2027 school year with a 2.969 tax levy increase. Additionally, Jake Hall, Heather Stevens, and Kelly Luthan were elected to the Board of Education by voters to fill 3 board vacancies beginning July 1st. Rob Brotigam received 195 votes. The seats carry 3-year terms. The Naples Library budget passed 256 votes to 77 votes. Ashley Jerome was elected to the library board. Palmyra Mayston. I have no idea. Voters on Tuesday approved a $54 million budget for the Palmyra Mayston Central School District by a vote of 308 to 107. The plan would represent a 3.69 spending increase from last year's budget. If approved, the taxes would increase by 2.63%. The 3 candidates running in the school board race were all re-elected: Sherry Lambert, Laura Arrington, Susan Henrendine, and Phelps Clifton Springs. Voters in the Phelps Clifton Springs and Central School District by a 327 by 113 margin approved a $48.9 million budget for 2026 to 2027 with a 2.23 percent tax levy increase. A school bus purchase proposition was approved for 53 to 87. Clifton Springs Library funding of $200,000 was approved 335 to 106. And a new 10-year capital reserve fund was created 355 to 87. Nathan Dingy with 239 votes and Deborah Gallagher with 282 votes were reelected to the Board of Education in 3-year terms. Other candidates, Samantha Pasalacqua received 216 votes. Victor by a 921 to 283 margin. Voters in the Victor Central School District passed a $116.3 million budget for 2026 to 2027 with a 4.29 tax levy increase. In addition to the budget vote, a bus purchase proposition was passed 901 to 994, and Victor Farmington Library proposition passed 934 to 271. Christopher Parks and Brian Adams were reelected to the Board of Education for 3-year terms. Wayne Central School District residents approved Tuesday a $62,094,875 budget for 2026 to 2027 by a vote of 412 to 345. The three school board candidates of the most votes were reelected to 3-year terms: Alexandra McCobb, Dennis N. Landry, and Kelly J. Corey. And another Jen Wall getting 432. Okay, then. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Friday, May 22nd issue of the Democrat and Chronicle. Your reader has been Tommy DeLeo, and thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a rebroadcast of the Jamestown Post-Journal. At 11 o'clock with the New York Times Magazine, and at noon we have History Magazine from our friends at Mind's Eye in Indiana, Illinois. Stay with us for these readings and more. In just a few moments, we're going to start our 10 a.m. program. It is the Jamestown Post Journal. It's an exciting new program we are offering here at the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service on Saturdays at 5 o'clock. This is a rebroadcast of this past Saturday's broadcast, in case you missed it, and also to say, hey, look at this. Stay with us. It's coming up right now.
Hello, this is Ken Kominski, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the recent issues of the Jamestown Post Journal. on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first article, a lucky one. ALS patient to host Walk Saturday, starting in Celeron, by Sarah Holthouse. ALS affects many people, both locally and nationally. And one local man who battles with the disease himself on a daily basis has organized a walk in support of those with ALS during Memorial Day weekend. Joe Moynihan was initially diagnosed with ALS in 2023. At the time, there were only 10 other local people with ALS from Dunkirk to Clymer to Warren, PA, all of whom he said have since passed away. ALS is not a reportable disease in New York State, so often numbers are not truly accurate, as people have to self-report, and most of the time it only becomes known once they pass away and it appears in their obituary. Moynihan's Walk, known as Team Joe's Walk for ALS Families, begins at 11 a.m. Saturday in the pavilion at Lucille Ball Memorial Park. In the past 30 months, since my diagnosis with ALS, which came only about a year after I finally retired from a decades-long career as a foreman electrician for Fry Electric and proud IBEW union member, I've come to know the incredible pain and trauma ALS brings to a family, Moynihan said. I've progressed slowly, and I'm a lucky one, as most people die from this disease within the first 2 years following their diagnosis. I've met and talked with young families and support groups who are in their 20s and 30s who are confronting losing a partner to ALS so young. Moynihan said ALS bankrupts families with the cost of medications and home remodels in order to accommodate the losses ALS brings to their lives. Specific ALS foundations work to directly help families like Moynihan's with these financial burdens, which is why Moynihan said he decided he wanted to help raise money for these various ALS foundations. These foundations help ALS families with things such as putting in ramps and remodeling bathrooms, and overall making life a little more comfortable for those living with ALS. To live with ALS is to be an active witness to everything that makes you human slowly and steadily disappear, Moynihan said. It takes away everything without warning or concern. What you could do last week, you could no longer do this week. It is a daily battle to try and find joy in your life each day. For the spouses and families who are caretakers, it's usually worse. Family members have to actively watch the person they love vanish before their eyes and have to face doing everything for them like they are a newborn baby, Moynihan said. This happens, as Moynihan said, the one living with ALS is completely aware of each new indignity that becomes a part of their everyday life. We lose our physical capabilities, but our mental awareness remains completely coherent. It's like living within a shell of your own body, as you lose the ability to walk, move your hands or arms, talk, and eventually the ability to eat, swallow, or breathe, Moynihan said. For rare ALS cases, they lose their ability to breathe long before their motor function leaves their body, and they pass away within months of diagnosis. ALS is an equal opportunity disease, affecting all people, young and old, with members of the military and veterans making up the largest percentage of ALS cases, Moynihan said. People need to be shown that we are still the same person we were before ALS, Moynihan said. One of the worst side effects some people fighting ALS face is their friends and family pulling back out of fear and ignorance of what's happening. So not only are they going through all this physical trauma while being fully aware mentally, but they are also losing the people who are supposed to be their support network. Not everyone is blessed with strong familial support systems to take care for them, unlike me with my large and fiercely loving family. My hope and wish is for the community to realize how many of our own community members this is happening to, or has happened to, and that Those community members could use their help, whether they realize it or not. One such way to help, Moynihan added, is by helping to fund the ALS foundations they are raising funds for that can directly improve the lives of people living with ALS. In the long term, he said, he would love to be able to help influence the perspectives of people for those living with ALS to better appreciate their strength and courage in facing this debilitating disease that takes everything from them and their loved ones. In the end, what I've learned is that ALS is a thief, Moynihan said, a thief that takes away the life you've built and planned for, the friends you've had, and it unfortunately creates for your family, and most importantly, your partner, a long and slow goodbye. The financial burden of this disease means nothing when it comes to my partner, children, and support network being forced to watch me slowly die, all the while not having time to properly grieve as they have so much work to do on a day-to-day basis as they try to keep me safe. Cherish the people you love and don't take for granted the physical abilities you have today, because ALS and other neurodegenerative diseases can come along and flip your world upside down like it did mine. A GoFundMe has also been started for the walk, which can be found at gofundme.com/F. Walking for Hope support families facing ALS. May is also ALS Awareness Month, and a group of people recently went to Washington, D.C. and planted over 6,500 flags for ALS patients. The flags, Moynihan said, represent the loving and beautiful community they are working to cure and financially help through the GoFundMe. A flag was also planted there in honor of Moynihan. Specifically, there are 5 foundations that Moynihan said have stood by him and his family through this journey: ALS Ride for Life, Shady Strong ALS Awareness, Billy Mead ALS Fund, Hark ALS, and the Live Like Lou Foundation. These foundations have helped to provide grants, home accessibility modifications, and even a generator to meet the daily needs that come with fighting ALS. All resources that Moynihan said helped to bring relief when it was needed most. The family is looking to pay that generosity forward, with 100% of every dollar raised from the walk being donated back to these organizations to continue their mission of helping other families facing ALS, especially young families and families with children. These families, Moynihan said, are the ones who often carry the emotional and financial weight of this disease all at once. ALS doesn't just impact one person. It impacts spouses, children, parents, and entire households, Moynihan said. Your donation can help another family stay in their home, afford critical equipment, or simply breathe easier during an overwhelming time. Joining us at our walk at the Lucille Ball Memorial Park on Saturday, May 23rd is not mandatory, but if our local community feels moved to make a donation in support of these 5 foundations who are making a difference in the lives of our own local community, please do donate if you are able, and help us to turn hardship into hope for the next family who needs it. Next, City Man charged after raid in Euclid Avenue apartments by John Whitaker. A Jamestown man faced several charges after a drug raid on Euclid Avenue on Monday. Tyler Perrin, 30, was charged with 4 counts of third-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, 2 counts of fourth-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, and 2 counts of second-degree criminality using drug paraphernalia after a raid at 12:48 p.m. Monday, after the Jamestown Metro Drug Task Force executed a search warrant at 28 Euclid Avenue, apartment 209. According to a police report, Perrin was found in the apartment along with a woman. After the residence was secured, detectives searched it and reportedly found 26.5 grams of methamphetamine, 18.4 grams of fentanyl, 6.6 grams of crack cocaine, digital scales, and packaging material. Perrin also had a $170,000 believed to be proceeds from drug sales. Perrin was taken to the Jamestown City Jail until he could be arraigned. It's the second raid in the 28 Euclid Avenue apartment building in roughly 2 months. 7 people were charged March 17th in apartment 203 in the building after a search warrant was executed by members of the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office and Jamestown Police Department. The Jamestown Police Department SWAT made entry into the apartment. Present in the residence was Jaquan L. Martin, Russell H. Ray, William J. Wallace Jr., William R. Gardner, Tiffany Mahoney, Alicia M. Alexander, and Vanessa L. Figueredo. As a result of the search, narcotics investigations seized 32.5 grams of fentanyl, 11.3 grams of crack cocaine, 28 dosage units of Suboxone, scales and packaging material for the distribution and sales of narcotics, and $3,373. Martin Ray, Wallace Jr., Gardner, Mahoney, Alexander, and Figueredo were all charged with 3 counts of third-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, fourth-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, seventh-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, and second-degree criminally using drug paraphernalia. Additionally, Wallace, Ray, and Figueredo had arrest warrants out of Jamestown City Court. All 7 will be arraigned in Jamestown City Court. Next article, Dunkirk Mayor to stop attending council meetings, by Matt Stafford. Dunkirk Mayor Kate Voivod said Tuesday she will no longer attend Common Council meetings. Voivod suggested Wednesday she might call her own city meetings. The council bid her farewell with an executive session focusing on the finances behind her lawsuit against former city dog officer Jennifer Sasso. This will be the last meeting that I will be attending, and I am not required by the charter to attend the Common Council meetings. Voivod began her mayoral report at Tuesday's council meeting. I just want to put that out there. She offered no further comment on her decision Tuesday. However, she had a few things to say to the Observer Wednesday morning. Council has not taken any meaningful actions at their meetings and have been failing the residents with their lack of decisiveness, Voivod texted. I am currently looking at options to exercise my executive powers to call special meetings at least 2 times a month to actually discuss issues in City Hall instead of the horse and pony show they keep trying to put on for the public, the mayor added. But of course, I will also make my meetings open to the public and provide an agenda. The mayor has had a tense relationship with council at times, even though every current member is a fellow Democrat. Councilwoman Natalie Luchkowiak has been particularly critical of Voivod and her administration in recent months. Luchkowiak pressed the mayor some more on Tuesday. She unleashed a response to the mayor's lawsuit against Sasso. Today, I will seek an executive session to review itemized legal billing in the lawsuit, she said. We'll focus on whether the charges distinguish city matters from claims involving an individual capacity. The lawsuit's funding was never appropriated by the council, and only the council may appropriate public funds which must be used for public purposes. Luchkowiak continued, personal legal claims by an official are not city business under New York state law. I will request the invoices separate city-related work from individual capacity work, and I took a note to safeguard taxpayer funds. She concluded that this request is for fiduciary oversight of billing transparency and not direction of legal strategy. The council meeting ended with the executive session that Lushkowiak requested. And as a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now about 15 minutes past the hour. Now we'll read some articles from the opinion section of the Post-Journal. City partners go back to the past with conventions push. Jamestown and its nonprofit partners are going to pursue conventions in an attempt to bring people downtown. The Jamestown Meetings and Conferences Initiative is one of the first tasks given to the newly reconstituted Jamestown Renaissance Corporation. The effort includes the City of Jamestown, Chautauqua County Government, CHQ Chamber, Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau, Gebby Foundation, and Jamestown area attractions and hotels. It's just the latest example of that which is old becoming new again. Jamestown has been doing this road before and actually had a modicum of success. The Doubletree Hotel was a fairly sought-after convention site for years in its former incarnation as the Holiday Inn for regional groups hosting multi-day events or conventions. A push in the late 1900s and early 2000s to bring conventions downtown worked fairly well. It wasn't uncommon to see the parking lot full of cars on a weekend when there weren't events or happenings downtown. It should be easier to attract such conferences and meetings with the addition of the National Comedy Center downtown. We're not sure why we needed a consultant to remind us that, with the renewal of a full-service hotel downtown and an economy that is becoming more and more geared toward tourists, that Jamestown should be a destination for boutique meetings and conferences. Why else would the city have invested so heavily in the Doubletree Hotel project in the first place if a push for conferences wasn't in the cards? The real surprise is that it took so long for this idea to resurface after so many years. It's such an obvious idea that we've used this exact space to call for more to be done to attract people downtown for years. We've been pushing for years for a more concerted effort to bring foot traffic downtown, particularly on weekends. Jamestown has needed to do more to bring visitors with disposable income into the downtown area. We've had some success on this front before, and we're confident that we can replicate that success. The real question is how to keep that ball rolling for years into the future after the initial interest in a shiny new toy has worn off. The next opinion is called "The Founding Fathers Would Have Gotten Rid of Trump Long Ago" by Jonah Goldberg. Now, Jonah Goldberg is editor-in-chief of the Dispatch and the host of the Remnant podcast. In 1788, Virginia convened a convention to debate ratification of the new U.S. Constitution promulgated in Philadelphia the year before. The pardon power proved to be a sticking point for some delegates. George Mason, the primary author of Virginia's own Constitution, was among those worried that the unchecked ability of unilaterally pardon criminality could lead to abuses of power. What if the president may frequently pardon crimes which were advised by himself? James Madison acknowledged that this would be a serious abuse, but argued there was a remedy. There is one security in this case to which gentlemen may not have adverted, Madison said. If the president be connected in any suspicious manner with any person, and there be grounds to believe he will shelter him, the House of Representatives can impeach him, and they can remove him if found guilty. This episode has gathered fresh attention in the wake of the January 6th riots and the impeachment trial it ignited. President Trump was impeached but not convicted. That was a mistake, in my opinion, but I'm not here to relitigate it. I want to be forward-looking. The British statesman Edmund Burke famously argued that one of the fundamental rules of a decent society was that no man should be judge in his own cause. For the founders, this insight informed the logic of the entire constitutional project. Burke's observation was so universally agreed upon, it often came up, sometimes without attribution, in debates at the constitutional and ratifying conventions. Madison invokes the idea in Federalist 10 in the context of faction and the need to have separation of powers. No man is allowed to be a judge in his own cause, because his interest would certainly bias his judgment and, not improbably, corrupt his integrity. Alexander Hamilton cites it in Federalist 80 as the reason why federal courts would adjudicate disagreements between states. It was assumed the state judges might be biased toward their own side of the dispute. This idea lurks behind all of Congress's powers and responsibility, including advice and consent, the sole authority to tax and spend, the power to declare war, and, of course, impeachment. Presidents are not arbitrary rulers. They are stewards with defined and limited powers. On Monday, President Trump settled a $10 billion lawsuit brought by himself. In the first term, Trump's tax returns were illegally leaked. When Trump returned to the presidency, he filed suit against the Internal Revenue Service. So, as a constitutional matter, Trump is suing the executive branch he runs for a crime committed by the IRS back when he ran it in his first term. Realizing that the courts might find this too cute to countenance, the Justice Department and IRS, both again run by Trump, compromised by creating a $1,776,000,000 fund. That 1776, before all the zeros, is a play on the country's 250th birthday that Trump will control. Its primary function would be to compensate the January 6th rioters, all of whom he has already pardoned. The president recently said that if China invades Taiwan, he alone will determine whether the U.S. will defend Taiwan. I'm the only person who decides. Last summer, Trump told The Atlantic that the difference between his first term and his second was that he didn't have anyone in his administration to hinder him. This time, I run the country and the world. Congress and the courts don't enter into it. After Trump unilaterally replaced at gunpoint the president of Venezuela with a pliant satrap without the approval of Congress, the New York Times asked if there were any limits on his will. Yeah, there was one thing: my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. I began with a discussion of the pardon power and impeachment for a reason. Contrary to thousands of hours of impeachment, legal punditry going back to the Nixon administration, a president doesn't have to commit a crime to be impeached. As Hamilton writes in Federalist 65, impeachment involves the misconduct of public men and the abuse or violation of some public trust. Impeachments are political. Hamilton's all caps because they injure society itself. It may, in fact, be legal for the president to be the judge in his own case, in his own cause, and create a taxpayer-financed slush fund for him to reward cronies and henchmen on a whim. It is already clear that presidents can launch wars without Congress or the courts, unduly getting in the way. But I struggle to think of hypothetical scenarios that would be more likely to arouse Madison and his contemporaries the now misplaced reassurance that impeachment was an available remedy. Democratic control of government means redefining America, written by Star Parker, who is founder of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. Her recent book, What is the Cure for America?, is available now. To find out more about Star Parker and read features by other creators, syndicate, writers, and cartoonists, visit Creators Syndicate website at creators.com. Per USA Today columnist Chris Brennan, the Rededicate 250 event held on the National Mall to rededicate our country as one nation under God violated both our national spirit and our Constitution. Per Brennan, the Christian character of the event and the Protestant content flies in the face of national value of religious diversity. The bottom line on the religious diversity claims points to religion not being a national value at all. I am perplexed how this squares with the rights noted in our Declaration of Independence, asserted under the authority of the laws of nature and nature's God, and the appeal of the signers at the Declaration's conclusion to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions. The Constitution's preamble notes its objective is to secure the blessings of liberty. The late Claremont Institute scholar Harry V. Jaffa noted, in this context, that what is a blessing is what is good in the eyes of God. Lincoln spoke in his second inaugural address to a nation that accepted God but was no longer one nation. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. Today, we have something very new with profound implications for our future. Our social and political tensions are increasingly not rooted in different understandings about what God wants from us, but in whether the Creator is relevant at all. True and false, good and evil, are among many different, equally legitimate possibilities. It's all relative. Things get back to the objections to Rededicate 250. Our differences about religion are now increasingly partisan. Per Gallup in 2001, the percentage of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents who identified as having no religion was 11%. The percentage of Republican-leaning independents identifying as no religion was 7%. This made a difference of 4 points. By 2023, Democrat knowns was up to 33%, and the Republicans 12%. The difference increased to 21 points. Per Gallup in 1980, among 30 to 50-year-olds, among those identifying as Republicans, 84% were married, and among those identifying as Democrat, 82%. This made a difference of 2 points. By 2024, the percent of Republicans married was 67% and Democrats 49%, a difference of 18 points. Growing divergent partisan attitudes about religion translate into significantly different partisan results regarding marriage, family, and children. In 2025, Gallup reported differences in attitudes among Republicans and Democrats regarding capitalism and socialism. Among Republicans, 74% said they have a positive view of capitalism. Among Democrats, 42% said they have a positive view of capitalism. Among Republicans, 14% said they have a positive view of socialism. Among Democrats, 66% said they have a positive view of socialism. The dramatically different views among Republicans and Democrats regarding capitalism and socialism flow logically from the different dispositions among the parties regarding religion. The Eighth Commandment says, "Thou shalt not steal." It recognizes private property. The 10th Commandment says, "Thou shalt not covet." And it recognizes that your business is what is yours and not what your neighbor has. Socialism is the opposite. It is secularism. It erases the sacred nature of private property and is driven by redistributing wealth, concern with what your neighbor has. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, the new progressive socialist face of the Democratic Party, exclaimed, "You can't earn $1 billion. You just can't earn that. You can get market power. You can break rules, you can abuse labor laws, you can pay people less than they're worth, but you can't earn that. Apparently, Bill Gates did not build Microsoft, or Jeff Bezos Amazon, or Elon Musk Tesla with super hard work, creativity, and risk-taking. They are all scoundrels. Progressives think we need AOC, who can draw on her work experience as a bartender to straighten everything out. Never has what party rules in Washington meant so much to our country's future. And as a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes past the hour. The next article, City Honors Revolutionary War Patriots in Lakeview Cemetery by the Post-Journal staff. As communities across the nation prepare to commemorate the upcoming 250th anniversary of American independence, the City of Jamestown and the Jamestown Veterans Commission are recognizing the enduring legacy of the Revolutionary War patriots laid to rest within the historic grounds of Lakeview Cemetery. This Memorial Day, the Jamestown community is called not only to remember the founding of the nation, but also the individuals whose courage, sacrifice, and service made that founding possible. Buried within Lakeview Cemetery are soldiers of the American Revolution whose contributions helped secure the freedoms and democratic principles that continue to define the United States nearly 250 years later. Among the Revolutionary War patriots interred at Lakeview Cemetery are Daniel Hazeltine, John Cowing, Cyrus Fish, Eliphalet Stewart, Benjamin Delameter, Joseph Dix, Isaac Staples, William Washington, Thomas Matthews, and Andrew Crawford. While portions of their individual stories and military service have faded through time and incomplete historical records, their collective legacy remains deeply significant both locally and nationally. Their final resting place in Jamestown serves as a powerful reminder that the story of America's independence is not preserved only in monuments, battlefields, or historic books, but also within communities like our own. Following the Revolutionary War, many veterans journeyed westward into developing frontier communities across New York State, including Chautauqua County, carrying with them the ideals and freedoms secured through the struggle for independence. Their settlement in western New York reflected the broader story of a young nation expanding and rebuilding in the years following the Revolution. These citizen soldiers not only defended the cause of liberty, but also helped build the communities and civic foundations that would shape the region for generations to come. Today, the Jamestown chapter, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, continues the work of preserving and honoring the memory of these patriots through commemorative ceremonies, educational outreach, historical preservation efforts, and the marking of Revolutionary War grave sites. Their dedication helps ensure that the sacrifices and contributions of these individuals are not lost to history. As we approach America's 250th anniversary, it is important that we recognize and remember the individuals whose sacrifice and service helped establish our nation, said Keith Eklund, chair of the Jamestown Veterans Commission. These patriots were ordinary citizens who answered an extraordinary call during moments in world history. Their legacy continues to inspire us and reminds us of the enduring importance of duty, sacrifice, liberty, and service to our country. As the nation prepares to commemorate 250 years of independence in 2026, the City of Jamestown and the Jamestown Veterans Commission encourage residents to visit Lakeview Cemetery over the Memorial Day weekend to pay tribute to these Revolutionary War patriots, reflect upon the sacrifices of the founding generation, and recognize that the legacy of America's independence continues to live on within our community today. Next article, reason to revel. Area woman to celebrate 100th birthday Saturday by the Post-Journal staff. After retiring as a school librarian, Georgia Hiller never lost the love of reading. She'll turn 100 on Saturday and continue her love for books. Her family has scheduled a birthday party for her at the Landmark restaurant. Her son Paul Hiller of Cleveland said she lives alone in Driftwood near Bemis Point, and she is still very active in her church, Pilgrim Memorial United Church of Christ, 70 McKinley Avenue. Her husband passed away at 94, and her mother passed when she was 99, and her sister passed at 98. So her son said it's fitting that she is reaching the 100-year milestone. We have family coming from around the country, Arizona, Maryland, to celebrate, Paul said. She enjoys going out to eat and enjoying seafood. She also enjoys going to the Fluvanna Free Library, 3532 Fluvanna Avenue, to read books by author James Patterson. She also likes other fiction authors as well as reading nonfiction historical books, Paul said. She didn't do any writing, but she loves reading. It's a favorite pastime of hers, Paul added. She reads everything. Another pastime she enjoyed when her husband was living was to travel during the summer months in their motorhome, Paul said. She and my dad traveled all over the United States, Paul said. They also went to Mexico and Canada, too. George Hiller was born in Fillmore near Wellsville. She graduated from Houghton University. She was a school librarian for several years, working for the Bemis Point School District, Fenner Elementary School in Falconer, and Fletcher Elementary School in Jamestown. Her son said, she and her late husband moved to the Driftwood area in the 1950s and built a house there, the one in which she still resides. At the party, her son said people probably will just enjoy the meal and the fact she is turning 100 and really not worry about gifts. There's really nothing to consider, Paul said of his mom receiving any gifts. Next, County eyes changes to short-term rental regs by Gregory Brown. Chautauqua County is eyeing some changes to its regulations for short-term rental properties. The changes are designed to align county regulations better with state regulations. During the legislature's Administrative Services meeting, County Finance Director Kitty Lyons said that she has been working with the county law department to update the local law which establishes a tax on occupancy of hotels and short-term rental rooms to align changes to the state level. A lot of the changes had to do with definitions of short-term rentals. One specific change is that currently short-term renters must apply for an occupancy tax certificate 3 days after establishing their business. The county wants to require renters to apply for the certificate before opening. Once a business registers, the county will return the certificate within 5 days. It will be pretty automatic once our new portal is open. They'll be able to register online, Lyons said. Renewals will take place every 2 years. The county is looking to have all renewals take place at the same time. So in the future, some businesses will only be given a 1-year certificate. Lyons said businesses who don't renew but continue to accept short-term rentals will be contacted directly. Lyons said when a business registers, it will attest to having met certain requirements, including having a posted evacuation diagram, posted emergency phone numbers, a working fire extinguisher, and are in compliance with health and safety requirements. Another change is that currently the regulations permit the county to contact a renter directly should the owner fail to collect the tax. Lyons said that policy isn't practical, so it's being eliminated. The changes will be voted on at the legislature's full meeting, which is set for Wednesday night, May 27th. Lyons said if there are further changes needed, the vote can be delayed until June. Next, county takes part in mental health planning series. Chautauqua County recently concluded a multi-session system of care action planning series, bringing together cross-system leaders to collaboratively strengthen services and supports for children, youth, and families. Facilitated in partnership with the State Office of Mental Health and Chautauqua Tapestry, the series focused on identifying shared priorities, strengthening collaboration, and laying the groundwork for system improvements. Throughout the series, participants demonstrated strong engagement and a clear sense of community. Jessica Stannis from the State Office of Mental Health facilitated the workshops and noted the high level of participation, shared commitment, and collaboration across systems. As a result of the action planning process, stakeholders identified access to services as the top priority, with 3 key focus areas emerging: workforce access and awareness of services and transportation. Participants emphasized the importance of ensuring families know how to access support, strengthening workforce recruitment and retention, and improving transportation options so services are reachable for those who need them. The series also produced a shared action plan, including expanding awareness and use of service navigation tools such as United Way 211 and Find Help, increasing understanding and availability of the CHQ Transit, and improving onboarding and retention strategies across the behavioral health workforce. These priorities reflect a cross-system consensus on where targeted efforts can have the greatest impact. To support those priorities in action, Chautauqua Tapestry will spotlight community resources in its quarterly newsletter series featuring 211 Western New York this spring, CARTS, C-A-R-T-S, in the summer edition, and New York Connects in the fall to increase awareness and help families and providers better connect to services. Moving forward, Chautauqua County will continue to refine and implement the action plan by strengthening partnerships, inviting additional stakeholders to the table, aligning efforts with existing cross-system initiatives, and finalizing a shared vision statement to guide the work beyond the system of care grant period. For more information about Chautauqua Tapestry and the county's system of care efforts, email Rachel Ludwig, Grant Director, at mesmerr@chqgov.com. And now from the area police report from the Jamestown Police Department. Connor A. Dale, 19, was charged May 20th with 7th-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance and having active bench warrants. According to police, at about 1:30 a.m., officers responded to the northeast side for a report of a male attempting to enter vehicles. Officers located Dale, who was in the area, and matched the description that was provided. Officers, police said, were aware that Dale had active bench warrants through Jamestown City Court and subsequently placed him into custody before taking him to Jamestown City Jail. He will be in court later. Chet A. Anthony, 33, of Jamestown, was charged May 20th with being a fugitive from justice. According to police, at about 11:36 a.m., officers were on patrol on the north side when they observed Anthony, who was known to be wanted by the Warren County Sheriff's offices in Pennsylvania for cruelty to animals. Anthony was placed into custody and taken to the city jail, where he is awaiting extradition. And from the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Department, Trevor J. Neer, 26, of Sherman, was charged May 19th with second-degree criminal contempt. According to officials, at about 1:20 p.m., deputies were dispatched to an address in the town of Sherman for reports of an order of protection violation. Through investigation, it was found that Neer allegedly did violate an active order of protection. Neer placed into custody and transported to the Chautauqua County Jail for centralized processing. He will be in Sherman Town Court later. And as a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Jamestown Post-Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now about 45 minutes past the hour. And now we'll switch to some articles from the local sports section. Kings, Trout, and Giant Kicker Bass by Forrest Fisher. Spring fishing across western New York has shifted into high gear, and if recent action on Lake Ontario is any indication, anglers may want to call in fish sick sooner rather than later. The popular Lake Ontario County's Trout and Salmon Derby wrapped up May 10th after 10 days of thrilling weigh-ins, leaderboard shuffling, and enough silver-sided salmon to keep camera shutters clicking from Wilson to Wayne County. The biggest story belonged to East Amherst angler Joe Yeager, fishing alongside his brother Paul Yeager of Grand Island. While trolling the Niagara Bar on May 7th, the duo hooked into a heavyweight king salmon that smashed a dark Hero salmon candy spoon, tipping the official scales at a whopping 24 pounds, 5 ounces. The fish earned them the $15,000 grand prize, a $1,000 Lots A award, and a $500 Fish of the Day bonus. Not bad for a morning in the water. And according to veteran charter captain Frank Campbell, the action hasn't slowed one bit. It's like anywhere else, Campbell noted. Fishing can fluctuate from day to day, depending on wind and what it does to water temperatures, and the Niagara River plume that flows into Lake Ontario. Translation: the fish are there. You just have to outsmart them before they outsmart you. That chess match played out perfectly during the Wilson Harbor Invitational Salmon Tournament last weekend. Captain Pete Alex of Vision Quest Fishing teamed with Kevin McLean of Pittsburgh, Lucas Rupp of Erie, and Eric Kelly of Wilson for a strategic 2-day gamble that paid off handsomely. Day one began off the old Somerset Power Plant in relatively shallow water, 45 to 55 feet deep, where smaller fish dominated. Alex adjusted quickly, pushing into 175 to 220 feet of water and switching from spoons to a meat program. The deeper spread immediately connected with larger kings, and the team boxed enough quality fish to finish third for the day, behind Captain Rich Hajecki and the Yankee Troller crew. On day two, while nearly the entire tournament fleet ran east, Alex zigged while others zagged. Vision Quest headed west to the Niagara Bar and worked 150 to 240 feet of water with a spread that was 75% meat rigs and 25% spoons. Dreamweaver Spin Doctors and Dreamweaver Magnum spoons did most of the damage. Even with a lighter 6-fish box Sunday, the team still posted nearly 300 points and stayed in contention. Meanwhile, Pulaski's Tom Allen and the A. Tom Mick team hauled in the day's biggest catch. Fun stuff with line-stretching action. Next up on the Lake Ontario tournament calendar is the Skip Hartman Memorial Pro-Am Salmon Tournament out of Wilson and Olcott on June 5th and 6th, with registration by May 24th. The action hasn't been limited to salmon either. In the upper Niagara River, Marilla angler Steve Brushkevich discovered that targeting walleyes can become complicated when aggressive bass refuse to leave your lures alone, a problem most anglers would gladly accept. By shortening his trolling lead and lifting stick baits slightly off bottom, he finally connected with walleyes. Shore anglers have also been scoring at the foot of West Ferry Street, using swim baits on heavy jigs. Meanwhile, during the annual Niagara Falls Outdoor Media event, Dante Gramuglia of Flambeau Outdoors boated an absolute giant smallmouth bass from Lake Erie weighing 7 pounds, the kind of fish that makes grown anglers giggle like kids at summer camp. With bass season Heating up from Dunkirk to Barcelona on Lake Erie, now is prime time for anglers hoping to land the fish of a lifetime. Gotta love the outdoors. And the outdoors calendar is May 21st, Southtown's Walleye Association monthly meeting, 5895 Southwestern Boulevard, Hamburg, 7 p.m. start. May 21st, Lake Erie chapter of Fly Fishers International monthly meeting, Birchfield Center, 2001 Union Road, West Seneca. Guest speaker Kurt Klingensmith, 7 p.m. start. And June 1st, New York State Inland Chautauqua Lake Muskellunge Tiger Muskie opening day, minimum length 40 inches, daily limit 1. Season ends November 30th. Great Lakes Muskie season opens June 15th. Next, Chautauqua Lake Westfield wins league title. The Chautauqua Lake Westfield boys golf team finished undefeated in the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Athletic Association Division I Small Schools Division with wins over Dunkirk, Cassadaga Valley, and Maple Grove on Wednesday at Shorewood Country Club. Jackson Marsh went 4 over on the par 34 course to earn medalist honors for Cassadaga Valley, 7-10 and 4-4. But Chautauqua Lake Westfield defeated Dunkirk 30.5 to 24.5, bested the Cougars 31-24, and topped Maple Grove 40-15. Braylon Swanson led Chautauqua Lake Westfield 12-1 and 8-0 with a 45. Carter Keppel matched that score for Dunkirk 6-10 and 4-4, and both Connor Schrantz and Matthew Chimera shot 54 for Maple Grove 0-12 and 0-8. Chautauqua Lake Westfield, Braylon Swanson 45, Liam Swan 47, Carter Crabtree 48, Gavin Gresh 53, and Thandon Bensink 53. Dunkirk, Carter Keppel 45, Cam Keppel 46, Donovan Correa 53, Jackson Cooper 54, Chuck Sutherland 60. Cassadaga Valley, Jackson Marsh 40, Jacob Hewling 49, Skylar Zableski 52, Woods Barmore 54, Austin Gloss 55. Maple Grove, Connor Schrantz 54, Matthew Chimera 54, Barker Johnson 62, Colin Smith 66, and Hunter Payne 79. Fredonia edges Pine Valley in Unified Hoops, South Dayton. Austin DeLiba scored a game-high 8 points to lead Fredonia past Pine Valley 28-24 in unified basketball action on Wednesday. Louis Gugino provided another 6 points for the Hillbillies. Landon Rukavina scored 4, then Julian Ocasio, Devin Batten, and Elizabeth Joy had 2 points each. Pine Valley was led by James Malty and Sam Fish with 6 points each, while the trio of Andrew Newbell, Sadie Krushka, and Tiana Bova scored 4 apiece. Fredonia 7-2 will host its senior night tonight against Frewsburg at 5 p.m., with the seniors being honored 15 minutes before tip-off. The playoffs will begin next Wednesday, and the season will culminate in an event next Friday at Fredonia State. Fredonia knocks off Depew in flag football semifinals. Fredonia is headed to the Section 6 Class C Flag Football Championship after knocking off Depew, the top seed, 32-25 on Wednesday night in the semifinal. Head coach Nick Bertrando couldn't be happier. "I'm proud of the grit they showed in the second half," he said. "It was a nice win for the girls." The victory means the Hillbillies, 15-2, the 5th seed, will take on number 2 Pioneer, 14-0 in the title game, which is scheduled for 2 p.m. Saturday at Sweet Home High School. Depew finishes the season at 11-2-1. Fredonia led 13-0 after the first quarter, highlighted by Nora Pohamas's pick 6, but found itself trailing 19-13 at intermission. "It was a big-time gut check at halftime," Bertrando said. "The ladies answered the bell." The Hillbillies regained the lead with 2 TDs in the third quarter, and both teams scored a touchdown in the final. Fredonia's Madeline Polhamus clinched the victory when she intercepted a pass with 6 seconds remaining. Statistically, Sophia Uteg tossed 3 touchdown passes. Nora Polhamus caught 6 passes for 123 yards and 2 TDs. Madeline Polhamus added another touchdown reception, and Emma Perry rushed for 82 yards on 12 carries. Defensively, Megan Ivory collected 8 flag pulls, had 3 tackles for loss, and recorded 2 sacks. Perry had 6 flag pulls, 2 passes defended. Nora Polhamus added 7 flag pulls and the interception for a TD, and Michaela Scarino registered 5 flag pulls. And now we'll conclude from the comics section. Comic called Buckets. There's a gentleman looking at his phone, and he says, "My phone says the pharmacy has my prescription ready." He's talking to his wife, and he said, "I'm not happy about driving to the pharmacy, sitting in the car, in the heat, in line for half an hour, just to yell through that little speaker to get a little bottle of pills." And his wife said, "If it were me, I'd go inside and wait in line with people." So he responds, "Perfect. Let me know when you're back with my pills." You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from recent issues of the Jamestown Post Journal. We read from the Jamestown Post Journal every Saturday at 6 p.m. Your reader has been Ken Kuminski. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service is our New York Times Magazine. Following that at noon is history from our friends at Mind's Eye in Illinois. It's Today in History along with a discussion on the United States Constitution. And following that at 1 o'clock is Military Times Magazine, also from Mind's Eye, from Illinois. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which